The boy lay flat on his stomach atop a desert rock, binoculars pressed against his face, sun bouncing off the metal rim. Dust devils danced in the Nevada heat, spinning their silent fury just beyond the rusted fence that separated him from the vast, empty land surrounding Groom Lake. He adjusted the focus and swept the horizon, his 12-year-old hand steady with the patience of someone who had done this 100 times. Maybe he had. Ethan's father used to bring him here, before the cancer took him last summer. Aliens hide in plain sight. His father would say, grinning like a man with a secret too big to carry. All you have to do is look where no one else dares to. That was before the military funeral, before the folded flag, before Ethan began coming here alone. He lowered the binoculars. Nothing today either. No darting lights, no metal glints against the sky, no impossible shapes defying gravity. Just silence, the kind that settles too deep. He slid the binoculars into his pack and started down the rocky incline. The sun was beginning to fall, painting the sand in hues of molten copper. By the time he reached his bike, the sky had begun to blush violet, the first stars blooming overhead. Miles away, in a nondescript office hidden deep beneath concrete layers of government silence, a man in a charcoal suit rubbed his temples. Behind him, a screen showed grainy footage, an orb of light darting across night clouds with surgical precision. It stopped, hovered, vanished. Commander Gabriel Reyes had watched the clip 17 times. Each time, the nausea twisted deeper in his gut. Did they respond? He asked without turning. A woman with sharp eyes and a sharper posture stepped forward. No signal since May 18th. The last burst came from polar orbit. It wasn't ours. Of course it wasn't, Reyes muttered. He hated this part. The waiting, the guessing, the lies stacked on classified lies. He had served long enough to know truth rarely mattered when people were afraid. And right now, fear was crawling through every hallway of the Defense Intelligence Agency. The president wants options, the woman said. He's requesting a public soft disclosure, something that won't cause panic. Reyes turned finally. There's no such thing as soft when the world thinks it's alone. The woman said nothing. The silence agreed. Back in the desert, Ethan's tires cut lazy arcs into the sand as he pedaled home. A breeze kicked up, dry and whispering. It carried a sound he couldn't name, high, thin, and vanishing as soon as he noticed it. He paused, standing on the pedals, scanning the sky. Nothing. He shook his head and kept riding. But behind him, something blinked. It had been 6 months since the last official sighting. Publicly, anyway. Off the record, the incidents had tripled. Metallic spheres hovering over nuclear facilities, silent triangles gliding beneath satellite detection, and, most troubling, a pattern. All events orbiting a date, June 2025. Inside a secure archive 2 levels below Langley, Dr. Nadia Sharan pressed a fingertip against a glass display. Coordinates scrolled upward, matched the timestamps and cross-referenced eyewitness accounts. She wasn't military. She was an astrophysicist, loaned out like a scalpel to a patient no one could name. She had no uniform, no allegiance, just questions. Every encounter points to cycles, she said aloud to herself. Every cycle tightens. She tapped a red-marked entry. July 17th, 1977, the Vela incident. Officially, a South Atlantic meteor. Unofficially, the same pulse signature as the object recorded last week over Siberia. Sharen's finger hovered above the next entry, hesitating. If the signals were building toward something, communication, arrival, warning, then she needed to understand the language before the world decided it didn't want to hear it. And she was running out of time. Ethan arrived home to find his mother already asleep on the couch, the television playing static images of storms sweeping across the Midwest. He stepped quietly, not wanting to wake her. She'd been working double shifts since his dad died. He microwaved a burrito and sat at the kitchen table, unzipping his backpack. He pulled out the binoculars and a worn leather notebook, his father's journal. There were diagrams inside, crudely sketched circles, equations he didn't yet understand. Notes scribbled and rushed, slanted print. They always appear before major transitions. Not random, controlled. Flight patterns mimic evasive combat. Why? 1977, 1989, 2004, 2017, 2021. Next? Next. Ethan flipped to the back of the notebook where his dad had written only one thing. June 2025. Contact or confrontation? He read it again. The phrase clawed at something in him. Something that buzzed under his skin. He didn't know what it meant, but he would find out. Thousands of miles away, in a private hangar disguised as a weather monitoring station, an aircraft the public had never seen return from a midnight flight. The pilot removed her helmet, blonde hair damp with sweat. "How close did you get?" asked the technician. "Closer than I wanted," she said. "It wasn't a drone. No heat signature. No engine. Was it ours?" She looked at him, the corner of her mouth twitching. If it was someone's building toys off-planet. She handed over flight data, then paused. It reacted to us, like it saw us first. By morning, the headlines would quietly announce another weather balloon explanation. Satellite anomalies, training exercises, all the usual songs. But beneath the noise, inside silos and labs and back rooms lit by the pulse of classified monitors, the storm was gathering. Everyone on the inside had a theory. A few had proof. None had peace. Ethan stood outside again the next day, eyes to the sky. This time, he didn't bring the binoculars. He didn't need them. The knock came at 3:17 a.m., sharp, deliberate, and wrong. Not the kind of knock a neighbor makes, or a drunk friend looking for the wrong door. It echoed like it knew it didn't belong. Dr. Nadia Sharan was already awake. She often was, surrounded by glowing monitors and open files scattered like puzzle pieces she hadn't yet admitted were unsolvable. She didn't move at first, just stared at the door of her apartment, a shadow pooling beneath it from the hallway light. When the knock came again, 3 raps, evenly spaced, she rose, barefoot, silent. The man waiting outside was tall, pale, and without expression. He didn't offer a badge, but his stance was familiar, military, controlled. "Dr. Sharan, we need you to come with us." No authorization, no context, and no phone call, she said, folding her arms. "You people really don't believe in courtesy. You've been cleared. Your presence is non-negotiable." Her breath hissed out. They finally made contact. The man didn't blink. "You'll be briefed on the way." She knew that meant yes. The plane they took was unmarked, the type she'd only flown once before, back when the Pentagon brought her in to study the metallic fragments recovered from a Baltic Sea incident they swore never made the news. Those samples had defied chemical analysis, shimmering in ways no earth alloy should. She hadn't seen them since. But now, the chill in the cabin, the stiffness in the air, told her something far stranger had occurred. They arrived at a base with no name, buried beneath Alaskan ice. The cold bit through her coat as she stepped out. Inside, the corridors were carved with utilitarian precision, military bones wrapped in scientific skin. She followed 2 officers into a chamber sealed with biometric locks and concrete 12 feet thick. And then she saw it. Floating in a glass suspension tank was a sphere, no larger than a grapefruit. Black, but not matte. It shimmered in pulses, like a breathing thing pretending to be metal. Around it, equipment hummed uselessly. Radiation detectors, spectrometers, EM pulse trackers, none of which gave a reading that made sense. "What is it doing?" Nadia asked. The technician next to her spoke, without looking up. "It's not doing anything." "We are." She frowned. "Explain." "The sphere doesn't emit signals. It reacts to us. Movement, thought, electrical impulses. When the general entered earlier, it pulsed brighter. Are you telling me it's reading us?" "No, doctor," the tech said. "We think it's interpreting us." Elsewhere, in a hollowed-out mountain in Colorado, Commander Reyes leaned against a wall of monitors, arms crossed. On the screen before him played the latest footage from SETI's Deep Scan Observatory in Chile. 3 repeating tones captured within a hydrogen line, coming from the direction of a known void. The pattern wasn't random. It mimicked the Fibonacci sequence. But the audio spectrogram contained more than just numbers. It shimmered with harmonics that resembled vocal structures. Reyes didn't know how to process that. He wasn't a linguist. What did the AI say? He asked. A junior analyst clicked a few keys. Luna thinks it's an attempt at phonetic mimicry. Like, it's trying to approximate human vocal tone, but without understanding language. So it's not a message, Reyes said. No, sir. It's a practice run. He closed his eyes. The sphere in Alaska, the signals in space, the aerial encounters. They weren't isolated. They were rehearsals. Ethan didn't understand any of that. He only knew the dreams were getting worse. More vivid, more specific, and every one of them ended with a sky full of black stars and a hum that made his molars ache. He sat in the back of his classroom, doodling symbols on the margin of his notebook. Not letters. Not quite. More like impressions. His teacher called him twice. He didn't hear. After school, he pedaled straight to the ridge, climbing to the overlook where the air thinned and the static returned. The same high-pitched sound he'd heard before, but this time it was clearer, threaded with rhythm, a pattern, like a coded whisper. He didn't bring his father's notebook today. He didn't need it. The pattern was already inside him. Nadia stood across from the tank, eyes fixed on the sphere as it pulsed in rhythm with the room's electricity. Then, without warning, the sphere emitted a pulse, not a sound, but a pressure. Every monitor blinked. The lights flickered. The feeling was unmistakable. Presence. The room held its breath. Did it just respond? She asked. The technician checked his readings. There was no external stimulus. It initiated on its own. Then the sphere floated upward, still within the liquid, and Nadia stepped closer. It's waiting, she whispered. For what? The tech asked. She didn't answer. She couldn't. But in her chest, the tension coiled tight. In a cabin deep in the woods of northern Utah, an independent astronomer named Marcos DeWitt stared at his crude satellite dish and the blinking red light it hadn't shown in years. His equipment was obsolete, so far behind modern standards it shouldn't have picked up anything meaningful. And yet here it was, a pulse, not noise, not a burst, but a deliberate, repeating shape, a waveform signature, one he'd seen once before. In 2007, that signal had never been explained. It had vanished after a week. He'd recorded it, logged it, forgotten it. Until now, this new one was the same. Almost, except this one had a variation, a correction, a reply. He reached for his ancient laptop and hit record. Someone's listening, he murmured, and they just heard back. In a secured conference room beneath the Capitol, the President of the United States sat with her palms folded, face unreadable as the intelligence was laid out before her. Alaska's object, SETI's tones, pilot encounters from multiple branches. One by one, they painted a picture with no face, only intent. What are we not saying? She asked finally. Commander Reyes cleared his throat. We've been tracking a pattern of escalation, not aggression, just clarity. Clarity? They've been preparing us for something. Nudging us, testing our perception, our infrastructure, seeing how much we notice, how we interpret, how we lie to ourselves. The president tapped her fingers once. And you believe this builds to something? He nodded. Yes, ma'am. June 2025. Everything points to it. She exhaled. Then we have 12 months. Less, Reyes said, if they change the timeline. The president stood. Prepare the public. Slowly. Sensibly. If this is real, and I believe it is, we need the world curious, not afraid. And somewhere far above the earth, in the shadow of the moon, something blinked for the first time in 10,000 years. Ethan sat cross-legged on his bedroom floor, the radio hissing softly on his desk. He'd built it from spare parts, a gift from his dad before everything went wrong. Back then, it was just a project, a way to teach circuits and soldering. Now it was something else. He kept it tuned to obscure frequencies, hoping to catch something nobody else would. Tonight, the static trembled. Not a voice. Not exactly. But a rhythm. 1, 2, pause, 1, 2, 3. He leaned in, turning the dial by the millimeter. The signal didn't fade. It followed. The house creaked around him. His mom had fallen asleep on the couch again, her job draining the hours from her bones. The sound from the radio deepened, like it had weight now, a pressure. It pressed on his ears, humming in time with his heartbeat. Then it stopped, and for a second too long, Ethan's room was impossibly silent. He didn't sleep that night. Far from Nevada, in a lab carved into the Greenland ice shelf, Dr. Nadia Sharan stared at the latest transmission looped on her screen. The black sphere, now sealed in a mobile containment chamber, had emitted another pulse. This one came with structure, embedded data. "It's not a message," she told the team. "It's a model." Her assistant, a quiet man named Keller, frowned. "A model of what?" She tapped her tablet and brought up a 3D rendering from the pulse's output, a sphere nested within another, then a ring orbiting them both. Not to scale, but intentional. "That's not abstract art," she said. "It's celestial." He blinked. "That's Earth and the moon. And what's that third orbit?" She nodded slowly. "That's what we're going to find out." In Washington, Commander Reyes briefed the Joint Intelligence Panel. His voice was tight, precise. Gone was the speculative tone. What he had now was data. Seismic interference, communications blackouts timed with orbital anomalies, unexplained disappearances of high-atmosphere drones, all synchronized with the pulses from the sphere. "Everything we're seeing," he said, pointing at the screen, "aligns with the presence of a non-terrestrial object in near-lunar orbit. Stationary, silent, but present." The room held a collective breath. "And the signals?" a senator asked. "Still rhythmic, still mathematical. They're trying to communicate. Or calibrate. Calibrate." Reyes's jaw tensed. "Us. Our biology. Our behavior. Our tech. We're not observing them. They're studying us." That night, Ethan took his radio outside, away from the walls. He climbed the ridge again, the desert wind biting cold this time. He reached the overlook just as the stars ignited overhead. He sat cross-legged again, antenna raised, dial turned. The signal returned. Stronger. Clearer. He closed his eyes and listened. And this time it wasn't random. The hum carried tone, modulation, almost like speech. But not in English. Not in words. In something older. Something that felt like it had been waiting in the bones of the world. His mind flooded with images. Flashes of sky. Lights curling in geometric spirals. Symbols that felt like names without sound. He gasped, breaking contact. The radio clattered to the rocks beside him. Then the desert horizon blinked. A flash, silver and perfect, arched across the sky, impossibly fast. Then gone. No sound. No trail. He wasn't alone. Nadia stood at a frozen window in her quarters, sipping cold tea and reviewing the last pulse transmission. The embedded model had changed. Now, there were 4 objects. One orbiting Earth, one near the moon, one above the atmosphere, and one within it. "I think it's here," she whispered. Keller looked up. "It?" She nodded. "One of them." He frowned. "A ship?" "Maybe," she said. "Maybe a scout. Maybe something else." He hesitated. "Then we're not waiting for first contact. It's already happened." Nadia didn't respond, because deep down she already knew. In Utah, Marcos DeWitt's crude observatory exploded with signal distortion. Not random this time. Code. Bursts of logic stacked like a language waiting for the right key. He input a decryption matrix from an old Cold War protocol. Nothing. He switched to binary fractals. Something clicked. The waveform formed a sentence. "Eyes open. Arrival near. Remember, U.S." Marcos dropped the mug in his hand. It shattered. He didn't pick it up. Commander Reyes stood before a monitor as a new satellite image resolved into view. A structure, metallic, angled, black against the stars, hidden in the shadow of the moon. "Jesus," someone whispered. "How long has it been there?" "Longer than us," Reyes replied. The president was on the line within minutes. "Do we announce it?" "No, ma'am. Not yet. But we will." "Yes," Reyes said, his voice quiet. "They're not just watching anymore. They're positioning." In his room, Ethan drew again. Symbols he didn't understand but couldn't stop drawing. Swirls, points, radial rays. His father's journal lay open beside him, And now he saw them not as equations, but echoes. The journal had always been a map, not to where something would appear, but when. His dad had known, or guessed. June 2025 wasn't a question. It was a deadline. And whatever was coming, it was already in motion. The radio hissed again. This time a word, whispered, his name, Ethan. He stared at the device. Then the lights in his room flickered. His laptop screen bloomed white. Shapes danced across it, patterns too fast to comprehend. The signal deepened into a low tone, one that vibrated in his spine. Then everything stopped. Silence again. Ethan was shaking. The screen now displayed a single symbol, a ring of light intersected by a line. He didn't know what it meant, but he felt it, a marker, and somehow an invitation. Above the planet, in orbit, the shadow moved. Its trajectory altered, just slightly, toward Earth. The day the sky changed, no one could agree on the color. Some said it shimmered silver. Others swore it had gone bone white, like the light from an eclipse, but colder. Ethan saw neither. What he saw was a ripple, as if the air itself had sighed. He was standing outside school, his backpack unzipped and dangling, when it happened. The sound wasn't a boom. It was a pressure, a low-frequency vibration that rattled his teeth and bent the clouds like soft cloth. Then came silence. And then, as if drawn by instinct, everyone looked up. 3 points of light had appeared in perfect alignment over the western horizon, suspended far too high for aircraft and far too still for satellites. No contrails, no flashing beacons, just stillness. "Do you see that?" someone whispered. No one answered. Thousands of miles away, Nadia stood beneath the reinforced dome of Observation Bay 9 at the Greenland facility. Every monitor showed the same thing: stationary anomalies, exact geometric formations, triangular, rotating slowly on an axis that defied physics. Beneath the glass tank, the sphere pulsed brighter than ever. 3 vessels, Keller said, breathless. Simultaneous entry. Nadia's voice was soft. Not entry. Emergence. They hadn't come from the stars. They'd been waiting. Hidden. Reyes watched the Pentagon war room erupt into motion. Alarms. Advisors shouting into phones. Radar tracking systems lighting up across all continents. But none of the anomalies behaved like threats. No signals intercepted. No atmospheric burns. No weapons deployed. Only silence. "What's their position?" he asked the analyst nearest to him. "Geosynchronous. Each over a major tectonic fault line." "And, sir?" "What?" "They're broadcasting." "Show me." The screen filled with symbols. Not letters, not images. A sequence of pulses arranged in vertical columns, changing rhythm every few seconds. It looked like nothing. It felt like everything. "Is it language?" Reyes asked. "No, sir. It's timing. A countdown." Back in Utah, Ethan lay on his back in the dry grass near the ridge, eyes locked on the flickering sky. His radio was silent now, its batteries inexplicably drained. But he didn't need it. The hum was inside him, like his blood had started to sing. He heard the numbers in his head, 9, 8, 7. No voice gave them, just the knowing. The countdown was real. At T-minus 5 minutes, the president stepped onto a podium facing every major network. Her face was calm, composed, but her eyes betrayed the truth. She'd been weeping moments before. "We have made contact," she said. "The presence in our skies is not hostile. At least, not yet. We do not know what will happen next. But we do know this. Whatever comes, we face it together. As a species. As one." Nadia watched the stream from her office, her hands clenched around a ceramic cup that had long gone cold. "Together," she repeated. "That's the key." Keller turned to her. "What do you mean?" She didn't look at him. Her eyes stayed on the sphere, which now rotated in midair, suspended without any visible support. "They've always been watching us as a whole. Not as countries, not as tribes, but as a collective. Everything about this points to observation, of unity, or division. And if we fail, then they leave," she said. "Or worse, they stay." Ethan felt the air thicken. A light burst across the sky. Not blinding, but sharp, surgical. From each of the hovering triangles, beams lanced downward, not striking the earth, but hovering just above it. Massive columns of pale light, soundless and unwavering. Then came the projections. Above each beam appeared a shape, a being. They were not humanoid. Not exactly. Limbs too long, torsos narrow, no faces, only ridges where eyes might have been. But they stood, hovered, emanating clarity. Ethan felt their presence like a song, not in sound, but in intention. The beings said nothing. But every human watching understood. They had not come to conquer. They had come to reveal. In Washington, Reyes whispered, "It's a trial." And he was right. The projections remained for exactly 9 minutes and 12 seconds. During that time, riots ceased. Broadcasts stilled. People everywhere, rich, poor, rural, urban, watched in silence. The world held its breath. Then, as one, the projections dissolved. The lights blinked out. The sky returned to its color, whatever it had been. And then, a final signal. Broadcast in every language, every frequency, every device still functioning. You are seen. You are chosen. Remember, U.S. And the ships vanished, not disappeared, exited, as if they had never been bound to space in the first place. Ethan sat on the ridge long after the stars returned. He knew what it meant. He felt it. They weren't gods. They weren't devils. They were watchers, older than history, patient beyond comprehension. And now, humanity had been marked. Nadia received the final pulse from the sphere the next morning. It dissolved as she watched, folded into itself, leaving no residue, only data. Inside the final transmission, one image, Earth, glowing softly, encircled by a ring of light. She stared at it for a long time, then whispered, "We pass." But deep in her chest, a question lingered. Pass what? Reyes filed his final report in silence. His conclusion was not optimistic, not dramatic, just simple. Contact occurred. Intent, ambiguous. Outcome, pending. Pending. Because now the world knew it was being watched. And watchers don't always reveal themselves to say hello. Sometimes they return to see what you've done with the truth. Sometimes they come back to judge.